Parents of Reddit, what is most fucked up secret you are hiding from your children? I am the child, but my dad waited till I am grown up to tell me that my mom gave me a lot of sleeping pills when I was a little child, so she could leave me alone at home to maintain her relationship with her lover while my dad was working in another country. That cleared up many things. Edit. Thanks for everyone wishing me well. I really appreciate that I am doing well, and it doesn't affected me. Beside that, I don't remember much about my childhood, but I didn't suffer or whatever. Meanwhile, I am dealing with depression and anxiety since a few years, but I am not sure if this links to the drugging. But meanwhile, I am pretty good at being depressed, to be honest, haha. Otherwise, is my life really good? I want to clear up that I am in okay terms with my mom. She learned from her mistakes and I forgave her. I just don't forgive her that she did my dad so dirty. My dad is the greatest person I've ever known, and he deserves to be happy. My parents told me my sister is adopted. They didn't tell her. She's 34. BTW help, what do I do? That we are divorced. Years before they came along, spouse and I decided it wasn't working out and got divorced. Years later, things still weren't working out fantastically for both of us, so we got back together. Never did get around to getting remarried though. That I don't actually enjoy watching Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. My 2-year-old would be devastated because that's our show. I'm not the parent, I'm the child. But my family kept it a secret that my brother was a child molester and that my grandpa had raped my mother and threatened to kill us grandkids. I found out because I told my sister that my brother had molested me, and she told me about the rest. We were raised having a relationship with them like they were normal human beings. It's absolutely disgusting. That I got all these bedtime facts from Reddit. My daughter knows that her grandparents are getting a divorce. She doesn't know that it's because grandpa, 72, decided to knock up a 23-year-old. We will talk about it once she's older, but I don't want to normalize that relationship for a predolescent. Edit. This is my father-in-law. He's definitely not rich, in fairly impressive shape for a dude pulling social security, and I'm happily ignorant as to the status of his erections. It's a small town story with a fucked up single mom and her old man that hasn't experienced much emotional growth since being drafted for service in Vietnam. These people would never end up together if they were emotionally healthy and didn't have control issues. I'm definitely going to do my best to explain to my daughter, but she's 9 and emotionally overwhelmed by the very idea of the divorce. When she comes to me to talk about it, having processed the idea, then I will explain the situation more fully. My husband has already told his dad that our family and his new family won't be getting together for a barbecue anytime in the foreseeable future. Edit 2. A lot of you dudes are assuming a lot about 23. I would remind you that we are talking about small town, single mama, daddy issues, rural deep south, grandpa fucking 23. Y'all are a bunch of optimists. That she can't have a relationship with her grandfather because he's a pedophile and I would never trust him. The rest of my family maintains a relationship with him and leans on me hard to open up communication because family comes first. They are absolutely right. My family does come first, which is why my daughter won't ever have to have a relationship with him. Edit. He has molested/raped multiple members of my family and I only found out when I was pregnant with my daughter. Without going into too much detail, he also has a mental illness and I've been told that I need to let him have a relationship with my daughter because he's sick and couldn't help it. That we don't go to bed the same time as they do. I never actually took his nose. It stayed on his face the whole time. In fact, it has never once left his face, even though I have told him that I took it countless times. I even showed him the tip of my thumb as evidence of the theft. Sorry you had to read that, but it feels really good to come clean. Edit. Thanks for all the responses. Hey you some. I will tell him the truth eventually, but have to make sure mom is on board. 2. For those of you condemning me, your words weigh heavy, but honesty, much like a fire at the circus, is intense. My son's older half-sister molested him and that's why we don't see them anymore. Waiting until we can get into a psych for support before we break it to him. Edit. He was 3 when it happened, so was able to tell us quite graphically what was happening. The sister also admitted it and said she did it because it was funny and she liked to hurt him. DCP, Child Protective Services, became involved and investigated both families, but couldn't find anything suspicious. We are telling him because we very strongly believe it is the right thing to do. We don't know what/how much he remembers and would much prefer to give him the coping skills now instead of possibly letting him disintegrate into a non-functioning adult with massive problems. Thank you so much for all the support. It is a horrible thing to deal with, but we are going to do everything in our power to love and support him. I'm so sorry that so many of you had to go through similar situations. I'm proud of every one of you for surviving and fighting. Update. First of all, thank you again for all the many kind words and the show of support. My wife and daughter picked me up earlier this afternoon. We opted not to video the moment as it felt impersonal, and we just wanted to truly enjoy each other's company as we soaked in the monumental occasion. I definitely cried more than my daughter did. Over the course of the day she became more and more excited and exclaimed, "I can't believe you are coming home. It has been a fantastic day." Not really fucked up, but still a big secret. I've been living 5.5 hours away from my wife and daughter for the past 11 months. Every time I talk to my daughter she asks, "When am I coming home?" Well, little does she know that next Friday, when her and her mom come for what she thinks is just a weekend visit, they are actually coming to pick me up for good. Thanks everyone for all the kind words. To clarify a few things, my move was medically related. I got shot when I was 13 and this is in no way related to that. I'm a social worker by trade, but have not worked in the field these past 11 months due to my situation. I actually did an AMA about it a few years ago. My wife and I did get divorced, and yes, we did co-parent. However, recently we have decided that the truth is we should have worked harder on being together and are giving it another go. I call her my wife because I never really stopped thinking of her that way. I mentioned being shot because people were checking my post history and seeing that I had been shot, but not that it was when I was 13. People were wondering if that is why I had been away. I want to thank everyone for the incredible show of support and compassion, for all of the kind words. I would especially like to thank those who shared their personal stories of similar circumstances. Thank you for the gold and everything else. Honestly, I am unable to properly express how your words brightened my day and will continue to provide encouragement. I promise you all that I will post an update. I'm the child, but my grandma was so mad at my mom dating young and getting pregnant that she lost her first 2 pregnancies because my grandma made her brothers beat my mom until she had miscarriages. It hurts my heart. Edit. I know some people were curious for details, so here ya go. My grandma's brothers. My mom was an only child. It was communist Albania at the time. My grandma is lovely now, and it's a shame that she was abusive to my mom during her adolescence. My mom, I believe, suffers from some form of bipolar disorder or PTSD and result from the abuse, and subsequently abused my brothers and I. It was like walking on eggshells my whole childhood. Anything I did wrong ended up with me being hit. One of my brothers was the worst to me, would choke me out for making him lag on Call of Duty, and my mom and dad were working all day to support us and never really intervened. Even when they noticed me self-harming and depressed, I got punished and beat because my life in comparison was nothing to complain about. It took me a year in therapy to come to terms with I shouldn't devalue my pain because my parents have been through worse. After some time healing and forgiving, we are all okay with one another. I avoid my brother a bunch still. My anxieties/PTSD became a little too much for me to handle after living with them for 20 years, so I moved across the country. Despite all the bullshit my family has been through, time really did heal most wounds, and we all do love each other. There's more respect now than there's ever been. My mom has her first at 16, then 18, and me at 21. She understandably feels like she lost most of her childhood being abused and then raising kids. Also, stop telling me to hurt my grandma. I understand my mom's story is painful, but they're a healthy relationship. They love each other. My mom is supporting my grandma financially, and that happened about 30 years ago. My grandma was an amazing guardian to me and often saved me from my mom/brother's abuse. Adoptive parent of 3 kids, 2 of which are biological siblings and cousins. Found out a year after the adoption that the biological parents were half siblings who shared the same dad. The BO parents found out after they had the first child and proceeded to have another. The kids are now 16 and 13 respectively and have zero clue that they are a product of incest. Unfortunately, their biological grandpa just passed away, so there very well could be a big reveal coming in the near future. My son was a product of rape. He just thinks I had really low standards in men at one point. A colleague of mine has a friend who hid from her 8-year-old daughter that she, the 8-year-old, would die within a few years because of a terminal illness she got. My father molested my daughter. He suppressed the hell out of it. We are still trying to figure out how to break this to her. We cut off all contact with them. But my mother feels that this is something that shouldn't affect their relationship if my daughter doesn't actually remember the incident. I don't agree at all. But that doesn't stop my mother from trying to contact us. She comes from an age when women just suffered and said nothing about it. And so feels that we should just accept my father's apology and move on. It's overall a very confusing situation that we, my husband and I, have trouble understanding how to handle. Edit. I'm adding this here because I cannot even hope to reply to all those who've replied. No matter how much I wish to. My husband and I will be seeking a professional opinion on how to proceed in these circumstances. I only hope that we can be strong enough for her when our daughter will need us. Thank you all so much for all of your support and kindness. I appreciate it all very much. It's good to know that humans will continue to be there for each other through thick and thin, no matter the fact that we know nothing of each other. I value all your opinions so much. Thank you. My mom kept it a secret that the woman I was named after, her mom, my grandma, was stabbed to death by my uncle when my mom was 18. I always suspected my grandma had a tragic death because of how my mom would avoid talking about it, but I didn't know it was that tragic. My son was planned, but after separating from his father when my son was 8 months old and having basically nowhere to go / no way to actually take care of us on our own, many times I thought about the possibility of dropping him off at the hospital and skipping town. I never did, and he is 8 now, and we are very happy. Not a parent, but my parents held this secret away from me for a long time. When I was 3 to 4, my dad volunteered at a baseball park to shuttle people back and forth on a golf cart. Well, one night he didn't come home till really late, and I went to hi, but stopped to see that he looked scared and distraught. He is normally a rough and tough kind of guy and has a big heart. So I asked him what was wrong, but he said nothing and that he was fine. I believed him and went to bed. I woke up the next morning to see that our cousin, who doubles as our babysitter, was at our house, but neither of my parents were. I asked where they went, and she said they went to the morning service of church and not the afternoon service. Again, I believed her and never questioned any of it. Flash forward 10 years, my mom told me what really happened. He was shuttling some guy back to the parking lot when the guy put a knife to my dad's neck. He then proceeded to take my dad behind a dumpster and raped him. So when he got home, he waited for everyone to go to sleep and then tried to kill himself by overdosing on painkillers. My mom woke up in the middle of the night, realizing that he wasn't in bed. She found him in the bathroom on the floor motionless and called 911, where was sent to the hospital where was treated. He is thankfully still doing strong. I don't know where I would have been without him. Edit. First, thanks for my first silver kind stranger. Second, thank you all for the support. He is doing a hell of a lot better and is back to his former self. I make sure to cherish my memories with him a lot more, like hunting and fishing. Again, thanks y'all. Never expected this to blow up. Edit 2. Thanks for my first gold as well, kind stranger. For those of you wondering, they never caught the rapist, unfortunately. I don't know every detail as I didn't want to pressure my mom more as she was telling me the story.